I noticed as a kid that there is this constant 24/7 voice in my head. And it sounds like me and impersonates me, and it does not shut up for even 1 second unless I'm completely engaged in something where I'm not even able to pay attention to what I'm thinking. And only in these moments of just completely being present does this voice take a break. And no matter how hard I tried to get it to stop, or how long I tried to focus on something to make it stop, it just would not stop. If I held my breath, I could get it to stop for a second, but that's obviously not the way to go. If I say, don't think, that's a thought. So that was when I really realized there's this constant mental activity, and it's really exhausting, and it's not useful most of the time. And I never really thought of it again until I was about 16. I was a chronic procrastinator in high school, just a professional procrastinator. Every single test and project would be started the night before it, and I would just pull an all-nighter, and I was like, this isn't good. I'm always putting things off till later. And that was when I discovered a book in my brother's room called The Power of Now. And I stole his book. And I thought it would help me stop procrastinating. But it was really about this thing I realized as a child, which is how to be present, how to quiet the thinking mind, the egoic mind. I was able to really sit in that stillness, and that voice really shut up for the first time. That was when I really first had these moments of transcending this physical world and discovering that inner peace within. When I was a kid, I was pretty much always in the water, swimming in a pool or lake or ocean. Whenever the weather was nice, I was in water. And I realized that swimming, being in the water, makes you very conscious of your breath. And you train your mind and body to take deep breaths and to consciously hold it. And as I got older, I noticed that a lot of people I worked with were unable to really take a full deep breath. And it really comes from that stress, because when we're stressed, we breathe shallow and we breathe in choppy ways, not consistent, not calmly, slowly, deeply. And for many people I worked with spiritually, they had a really hard time with that. And that's when I really first realized how swimming made me such a conscious, intentional breather. And it became really second nature. A lot of times when we're stressed and we're holding on to stress, we hold our breath. And you can see this if you watch people and how they're breathing. Not a lot of people are breathing deeply, slowly, calmly. And at first that can be very difficult for people. But over time, especially if they're able to place a hand on their belly, they can become conscious of how they are holding their breath, how they are not breathing fully and deeply into their belly. And the Mind may control our mood, but we can affect our mood with our body as well. So our breath is a unconscious reaction to how we're feeling and how we are thinking. But if we control our breath, that will affect how we're thinking and controlling our emotion as well. So it's really like how we can really lead ourselves and lift ourselves up with our breath and with our thoughts. I think that all religions really help us to give our trust over to a higher power, which has proven benefits. That is the foundation of so many addiction programs. And it allows us to unload some of that stress by putting our faith in the universe. There are real measurable benefits to believing that everything will work out in the end and believing that some force will heal us and that there is beautiful rewards in the afterlife for our good deeds. And it can have a tremendous effect on people doing good deeds. And there is proven evidence that when we believe that people are praying for us to be healed, we heal faster. When we believe that our own prayers will heal us, we're more likely to heal. So there are many scientifically proven benefits to faith. And I think that they are very powerful and very beneficial. And if we were able to just use faith to heal ourselves, which doesn't mean don't take medicine, it just means in addition to taking medicine, we can be more likely to heal and heal faster. Wouldn't we be crazy not to believe in those things? Wouldn't we want to use all of these scientifically proven benefits like the placebo effect, which says that if you believe something is going to heal you, it often does. And so I think that really religion does fill a important function in our society and in our lives. If we use it to heal, grow, give us inner strength, and if we essentially recognize that we are all the children of some God or of the universe, whether we call it by a different name or we have different opinions on the details, then it can also unite humanity instead of divide us.
What was the first moment in your life when you were aware of awareness?
I think when I was probably 6 years old or so, I was baffled by this notion of how was I born into this family and in this time period, in this body. And I was just blown away by the rare chance of that happening. And I think that was really the moment when I started to explore and wonder about, where is that self inside me? And what is the nature of this being and of being a person? And that was something that really guided my lifelong quest of spiritual answers, which is, who am I? Where am I in this body? And it just leads you to the realization that you are awareness, that you're not your brain, which is deeply connected to your heart and your gut and your hormones and so many other things. And you can't be the entire temporary body, which is constantly changing and Some people lose an arm, but they're still their selves. And as you really dive into it, you see that there is this invisible, infinite point of awareness within us that has no shape or any boundary. It is just that radiating awareness, like a light bulb inside of us that has no source and no physical dimension, just like the pure light of consciousness. And it took a while to figure that out, but it started with that really wondering of, who am I and where did I come from?
Can you talk about your experience about getting into stand-up comedy?
When I was living in New York as a creative director in advertising, one of my friends asked if I wanted to take an improv class with her. And my life was pretty much gym, work, party, get a little bit of sleep, repeat. And so, but also I wouldn't say no to anything. If someone asked if I wanted to go on a trip, I'd go on a trip. If there was anything, one of my friends asked if I wanted to take a salsa class with him, and so we took a salsa dancing class. And that one wasn't for me, but when my friend asked if I wanted to take an improv class with her, of course I said yes. And that one really took. That was just so fun and such a creative outlet. And it really benefited my life in many ways. For one, it's a very tight-knit group and supportive community. It made my coming up with advertising ideas a lot faster and funnier, which is very important. It also forces me not to obsess over every little detail or every little idea in an ad, and to just be able to come up with something and move on. And that was very beneficial and made my work a lot better. But I think ultimately what it does, and this is what really connected with me, is it forces you to be fully present. You're on that stage and you have to play with these other people, and you have to actively listen, which means you can't be in your head. And you have to make these very conscious choices that elevates the comedy and whatever is happening in that scene. And so it's just got numerous benefits for being a team player, getting out of your head. One of these famous lines in improv lore is "don't think." And I think that that could really be spiritual lesson 101 as well. And from there, it just went into sketch comedy and stand-up comedy, and just having all of the ways of bringing joy and making people laugh and helping everyone release all that tension that they build up in their day and their weeks. And so I would say that was really my first foray into spiritual teaching, because of that just essential benefit that gut laughter brings to all of us. It's so important. It's really it goes air, water, food, laughter, And so that's how I got into it, and that's why I loved it so much.
When did you find out that you were stressed, but you did not know?
I think it was on my first meditation retreat that I realized how much stress I was under while I was in New York. In this meditation retreat, we are sitting on the ground meditating for about 12 hours a day. And my back was killing me. And I have had chronic back pain since I was probably 22 years old. And I would have to see a chiropractor, a massage therapist, and an acupuncturist, about each one once a week, to keep my back from just completely blowing out and being in bed for a few days. And I just assumed, it's because I have a desk job. It's because I played football. It's because I was in a car accident. These are the reasons that the chiropractor told me are very likely. And on day 6 of this 12-day retreat, my back was just killing me like it never has hurt before. Westerners aren't used to sitting on the floor. And like almost everyone else at this retreat, I begged the meditation teacher to let me sit in the chair, which was really reserved for like the 80 and over gentlemen. So the meditation teacher asked if I had had back surgery, and I told him no. But I told him my history and the car accident, and he said, no, go sit on the floor. So I was really mad and just tried to meditate through it. And once there was no more resisting and fighting and nothing I could do, I just gave in. And suddenly, my back pain went away. And I realized that it was the resistance that was causing the back pain. And that as I looked back, it was very clear all of a sudden that all of the stress and resistance and high pressure I was putting on myself, I was really putting on my back. And all of the drinking and partying was a futile and uneducated way of trying to deal with that stress. And really since then, I have had no back pain for the rest of my life. Modern science doesn't like to look at the mind-body connection too much because it's hard to measure what's going on in the mind. But when you look at the fact that 90% of all doctor visits are stress-related, and if you look at the cause of nearly any disease, usually stress is one of the causes. And when you see that stress is one of the causes in nearly every disease, you realize that these aren't stress-related, they're stress-caused. It's so funny how when we are spending every day at an office, how we become so almost institutionalized, and we don't recognize how everyone is becoming insane. When I got back from vacation, where I happened to meet my first guru, but also anytime really we come back from vacation, we tend to notice this because we're very relaxed from whatever, spending a week on the beach or whatever it is. And you just see very clearly how everybody else is very stressed and really needs a vacation. And so when I first came back from this spiritual awakening trip, it was really comical to see the sense of urgency, and like there was a fire from a logo being too small or big or not where it's supposed to be according to the brand guidelines, and this little tiny thing, and everyone's panicking and stressing and going crazy over a few pixels. It's not life or death here, but whatever we're doing can begin to feel like life or death. And when we don't give ourselves that space to see without the indoctrination and the constant thought stream, we go a little crazy, and we are becoming unaware of our stress and our mental state because we are lost in it. And that's why everyone needs vacation. But we can do that every morning. We can do that every evening with just a few minutes of putting away all distractions and allowing our minds and our bodies to settle down.
Todd, how was your experience quitting your job and selling audio solutions?
Quitting my job and giving up my apartment and giving away all my possessions, they were all the most exciting and most terrifying experience of my life. Doing the complete opposite of what every single person I know says you should do. And just giving my entire faith and trust in the universe that going on this mission with the purpose of helping people with what I can learn was the right decision, was both terrifying and extremely imbued with the sense that this is the right thing to do, that this is what my heart is calling me to do. I don't know where this idea in my mind got planted that I should learn about spirituality, that I should spend 50 days in a forest meditating by myself. But I felt that I was being called through the ages to do this thing, which sounds insane. And I thought it was insane. And I must be losing my mind. It was the greatest decision of my life. And I really didn't know what was going to happen. But I knew that even if none of it worked out, that these would be the greatest years of my life. And that is more important than anything else. For some reason, just that notion that the Buddha sat under a tree for 49 days and discovered enlightenment, or that Jesus went into the desert for 40 days and became Christ. I felt like history was talking to me. History was saying, this is what we're supposed to do. And so I really just had to trust. And I think when you follow your heart and when your dreams are infused with the desire to help others, that the universe conspires in your favor. And that is what I experienced.
So what was going in your mind when you bought a one-way ticket to India?
A lot of things went through my head when I was buying a one-way ticket to India. I hoped, but was uncertain, that I would find the ashrams and the monasteries I was looking for. I hoped I wouldn't fall for a cult. And I hoped that enough people would speak the language, English. And I hoped I wasn't crazy, which the jury's still out, but all the other things came true. It was right when I was ready for a place, someone told me about it. Right when I needed some new experience, that experience found me. Every single thing from that moment on just was the universe giving me a sign that everything will work out perfectly.
When did you find meaning and purpose in your life?
I think it was during my 50 days in the forest, when I was completely by myself, that I had the chance to really process every single thing I had heard, read, and seen with a long stretch of time, not rushed, just able to really absorb and reflect on what my purpose is, which became abundantly clear during this time, that it was really to help everyone experience this feeling of inner peace and lasting joy and infinite love. And as I understood that, and as I was in this forest with no distractions, no books, no people, no music, no internet at all, I started to become much more aware and present of everything around me. And that is where I feel the meaning came from, which is that this life, this universe, is magic enough. And there is beauty in every atom and grain of sand and speck of dust. And we just miss it when we dull our senses with all of the hyper-stimulating activities and pleasures of our modern society, that we become dulled to that subtlety and beauty. And meaning to me just comes from full presence, where the mind stops and we are one with our surroundings. And there is no negativity, there is no even wondering what the meaning of life is. There is just a strong and powerful sense of beingness and an aliveness, because we are one with our awareness. And what we are aware of is not separated from our awareness. It is everything we're aware of, we are actually only aware of in our mind. It is all data gathered and then recreated in our brain, and that is what we're really perceiving. And so the more we become aware of awareness, the more we recognize that we create our reality and our reality creates us. There is no more longing or craving for meaning. There is no trying to avoid any kind of pain or suffering. There is just the state of awareness, and it is incredible. And that's where I discovered that.
So how does it feel right now, knowing that you have changed the life of at least 2 million people through your words?
It really motivates me to keep going when I get comments about what I'm doing and how it's affecting people and improving people's lives. Even though these things were a tremendous help for me and changed my life, I still had doubts that anyone would care or listen or find meaning in it. And that's really my, old egoic thinking still left over. But it's very, very fulfilling that people are resonating and that there is a world yearning for these things. And gives me hope for the future that we really can bring about a world where we nourish that loving kindness, compassion, gratitude, and inner peacefulness, which will translate to a more peaceful world. Any spiritual healer, any spiritual teacher is going to encounter a great deal of sadness, anger, stress, trauma, by the sheer nature of the profession and who is called to take on that spiritual journey. And it's vitally important to be able to create a space for that emotion without taking on that emotion. And the same way I have dealt with my own stress and trauma and negativity is the same way I try to help transmute other people's. Just like bringing the peaceful awareness to my own emotions, I have to do that with other people's as well. Because if I'm not conscious of that energy, then I would take that on. And I would have to fall into the same old patterns that I used to be when it was just myself. Because it doesn't really matter if it's from within or from without. The same techniques apply. And we have to not take on new stress, and we have to release that stress that we have within. And ultimately, one way to do that is to recognize that these disturbing, destructive emotions are our greatest teachers. And so when I see a person who's really struggling, instead of break down in tears or anger and emotion, I channel that energy into how can I help this person? And I go into a place where I welcome that opportunity to grow as a person and to further develop my own abilities to help people. When I meet people who tell me that something I said really helped them, I don't even really take it as a comment on me, because I really feel like we are all one, and that I am showing only something that they already know within themselves. And while I'm overwhelmed with gratitude and love, I feel that all I can do is point someone in a direction, and they can choose or not to take that path. And if they choose, then I think of them as the hero of that story. And I am just that little bridge troll, just letting people on the bridge. And just grateful that anyone wants to take that path.